Imagine standing on your own porch, holding a legal document that represents your rights, your home, and your peace of mind, only to have your neighbor laugh in your face. Not just a small chuckle, but a loud, mocking laugh that echoes through the neighborhood. She looked me in the eye and told me that my lawsuit was a joke, that I was wasting my time, and that no judge in the country would ever take a side against her. She truly believed she was untouchable. But what she didn't realize is that the law doesn't care about how loud you can yell or how much you can bully your neighbors. The law only cares about the truth. Before we get into the shocking details of how this laughter turned into tears in the courtroom, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you were being pushed around by someone who thought they were better than you? Someone who took your kindness for weakness? If you believe that everyone, no matter how much money or influence they think they have, should be held accountable for their actions, then you belong here with us. We are building a community here at Karen Hub that stands for justice and common sense. By hitting that subscribe button right now, you aren't just following a channel. You are joining thousands of others who are tired of the entitlement and are ready to see the good guys finally win. Subscribe now, and let's make sure these stories of justice reach everyone who needs to hear them. The story begins in a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburb where everyone usually gets along. I had lived in my home for nearly a decade, pouring my savings into making it a sanctuary. But everything changed when Linda moved in next door. From day one, Linda made it clear that she didn't just want to live in the neighborhood. She wanted to rule it. It started with small things, like telling me my mailbox was the wrong shade of white, but it quickly escalated into a full-scale obsession with my property. The real conflict began when I decided to put in a small, professional-grade shed in my backyard to store my gardening tools. I had all the permits, I had checked with the HOA, and I was well within my legal property line. But Linda didn't care about permits. She claimed that the sight of the shed ruined her view of the sunset and demanded I tear it down immediately. When I politely refused, she didn't just get angry. She declared war. For 3 months, Linda made my life a living hell. She called code enforcement on me at least twice a week. She told the neighbors I was running an illegal business out of my backyard. She even went as far as to throw her lawn clippings over my fence every time she mowed. I tried to be the bigger person. I tried to talk to her to find a compromise, but she saw my attempts at peace as a sign that I was afraid of her. That was her first mistake. One afternoon, I came home to find that Linda had hired a contractor to literally cut the corner of my shed off because she claimed it was encroaching on her airspace. I stood there in shock, looking at the damage to my property, while Linda stood on her patio, sipping tea and smiling. That was the moment I realized that talking was over. It was time for the law to step in. I hired a top-tier real estate attorney and filed a lawsuit for property damage, harassment, and a permanent injunction. When the process server handed Linda the papers, she didn't look worried. In fact, she posted a video on social media mocking me, showing the lawsuit papers and laughing about how I was a sensitive little man who was going to lose everything in court. She told everyone who would listen that she had friends in high places and that my lawyer was just taking my money for a hopeless case. Every time I saw her in the driveway, she would point and laugh. It was exhausting, and there were days I wondered if I should just give up. But then I would look at the community we are building here, and I remembered that if I didn't stand up to her, she would just do this to the next person. When we finally walked into that courtroom, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Linda showed up in an expensive suit, looking like she had already won. She sat at the defense table, whispering to her lawyer and occasionally glancing back at me with that same mocking smirk. She truly thought this was all a game. When it was our turn to present evidence, my lawyer didn't just show the permits. He showed the security camera footage of Linda instructing the contractors to damage my shed. He showed the logs of the 54 times she had called the city on me, only for every single complaint to be dismissed as groundless. He showed the social media posts where she admitted to wanting to drive me out of the neighborhood. As the evidence mounted, I noticed Linda's smirk starting to fade, but she still had one more card to play. When Linda took the stand, she tried to act like the victim. She cried fake tears, telling the judge that my shed was a monstrosity that caused her emotional distress. She claimed that I had been the one harassing her. Her lawyer tried to argue that the damage to the shed was minimal and that she was simply protecting her property value. Linda even let out a small, condescending laugh when my lawyer asked her if she thought she was above the law. She looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, this is just a neighborhood spat. It's beneath this court's time." The judge, a man who had seen thousands of cases just like this, didn't say a word. He just looked at his notes for a very long time while the courtroom went silent. The silence lasted for what felt like an eternity. Linda was still looking around the room, expecting everyone to agree with her. But when the judge finally spoke, his voice was like ice. He didn't just rule in my favor. He delivered a lecture that will stay with Linda for the rest of her life. He started by saying that in all his years on the bench, he had rarely seen such a blatant display of malice and entitlement. He looked directly at Linda and told her that her laughter in the face of a legal summons was an insult to the entire judicial system. He said that property rights are the cornerstone of a civilized society, and her decision to physically damage my home was not a spat. It was a crime. The final verdict was a total destruction of Linda's world. The judge ordered her to pay for the full repair of the shed, but he didn't stop there. Because of the documented harassment and the fake city complaints, he awarded me $60,000 in punitive damages to ensure this behavior never happens again. He also ordered Linda to pay every single cent of my legal fees, which had surpassed $20,000. But the biggest blow was the permanent restraining order. Linda was forbidden from coming within 10 feet of my property line or contacting me in any way, including through third parties or city officials, unless there was a genuine emergency. If she violated this, she wouldn't just be fined. She would be facing immediate jail time. As the judge read the final numbers, the courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Linda wasn't laughing anymore. Her face had turned a ghost white, and she slumped back into her chair as if all the air had been let out of her. She had spent months mocking me, telling the world I was a loser, and now she was looking at an $80,000 bill for her arrogance. She had tried to bully me out of my home, but instead, she had dug a financial hole so deep she didn't know how to get out. As I walked out of that courtroom, I didn't feel the need to laugh back at her. I just felt a deep sense of peace. Justice had been served, and the bully had finally been stopped. This story isn't just about a shed or a fence. It's about the fact that no one has the right to take away your peace. It's about the power of standing your ground and following the process, even when people are laughing at you. Linda thought her personality was stronger than the law, but she found out the hard way that the law always wins in the end. If you've stayed with me until the end of this story, it's because you value justice as much as I do. This is why I do what I do, to show that there is hope when you are facing a Karen in your own life. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and join our community. Your support allows us to keep telling these stories and standing up for what's right. Thank you for watching, and remember, let them laugh now because the truth always has the last word.